This episode is brought to you by Livesn Designs. That's Livsn. Livesn is an outdoor apparel company built on the idea of owning less and living more. Their gear is designed to last, functional, versatile, and made responsibly. They create clothing that you actually want to live in, season after season. Plus, they stand behind their work with a lifetime warranty program and a mission to minimize the impact on people and our planet. Livesn has made a commitment, not just to its customers, not just to its sustainability, but also to you, the climbing majority. They've taken a leap of faith in sponsoring this show and become the first partner to stand beside this growing community. While this will always be a passion-first project for me, partners like this give me the time and resources to grow the show into something even bigger. So every time you choose to support Livesn, you're also supporting this podcast. Be sure to head over to livesn.com. That's Livsn.com to learn more about our sponsor and to make your first purchase towards supporting this community. Also, Livesn has extended an exclusive discount just for you. Use code TCM15 for 15% off your next Livesn order. That's TCM15 for 15% off at checkout. All right, let's get into today's episode. You had talked a little bit about the development of climbing in Vegas. And I'm very interested in that because you're at least the first person I've had the opportunity to talk to who has been here for a large majority of the kind of boom that we've experienced here in Vegas as climbers. And obviously the Uriostes have had a huge role in kind of the development there. So when you showed up it was 91, right? 91,
92. 92. When I first climbed here.
You said there's like 30 people climbing that are locals. You get people that come out here. Like, what was the scene like? Like, how much had the Uriostes developed at this point? And then talk to me a little bit about like the progression that you've seen over the last 30 years.
Okay. The scene, so there was no climbing gym here. So the scene was at Craft Rocks in Willow Springs. That's where people went. And that's where they were cragging, and that's where they were bouldering. So after work, you could park right at the boulders at Craft Rock.
Were there housing developments out there yet?
The houses were right there. But that road that dead ends into Craft Rock, we could park right there. Okay. And it was incredible. And you'd go out there and Richard Harrison would be there. Danny Ryder would be, Wendell would be there. Paul Van Betten might be there. The Kroleskis might be there. There was just this little scene of people, and that's where plans were kind of hatched from. Like, oh yeah, we're climbing this weekend. This is where we're going. I was like, okay, cool. And these guys, Richard Harrison, I never roped up with him, like went climbing with him, but I bouldered with him, around him a lot. Richard had a fused hip, had a hip thing. And so he would do these traverses and stuff. But I mean, it was like, when I found out that like what the Stone Masters were, and this was a Stone Master, like one of the Stone Masters, it was like, I couldn't get enough of hanging out with this guy. My friend Kevin did many, many climbing trips with Richard. And then Willow Springs, same thing. You'd go there on the weekend, and that's where people were cragging, and if somebody wasn't there, you're like, oh, well, they're probably out doing something mega. The Uriostes, George and Joanne, I met them, I probably met him at Desert Rock Sports, or there was another shop back then called Adventure Outfitters. And then there was Highland Outfitting, which closed down shortly after I moved here. But George and Joanne had a pretty tight little scene. And like Joanne, she left climbing for a few years, and she got into running, and she was an extreme trail runner. She did all those 100 miles. She's an incredible athlete. And, so the first time I went over to their house had to have been in 97, when I wanted to put up, I was wondering why there was a line on the Rainbow Wall that wasn't done. And so somebody says, oh, well, I think George and Joanne have a route there. They didn't publish it. And so I think Mike Ward gave me their number. And I called them, and they invited me to their house. They said, well, come look at our book. And they had this huge book with all these photos blown up of all the walls. And oh yeah, it was really cool. Like their personal guidebook, right? And I mean, these people, I'm just like, wow, it's just like legends, but a different style of legend than like the Richard legend. It was like there was kind of like this poo-pooing going on between both groups. Like one group put up routes for the adventure, one put up routes for other people. You know, that was the Uriostes theory. Put up beautiful routes for people to come and do. And they've done, I mean, they've excelled at it, right?
I mean, yeah, you could pull up a guidebook here and flip to a page and you're going to find their name.
Yeah. So I went over, they invited me to their house. George is a big beer drinker. I love drinking beer too. And we went through this book, and the route that I was interested on was the right shoulder of the rainbow wall that they called the bird hunter buttress. And they said, "Oh, well, here's our route on it." I was like, "Well, why didn't you publish it?" And "Oh, it's a very special route to us." And they got on the route. You know, they went up to the base of the wall and they traversed out onto the shoulder. And on the second pitch, or what they call a second pitch of a ledge, George got up there and found a perfectly intact Indian arrow with the arrowhead and the fletches and everything. So they were up there shooting it like grouse. And we started our route way down low, right out of Juniper Canyon almost. You climb the initial crack, or where they have the fixed rope to get up to the rainbow wall, and then you traverse to the right, get in this crack system that just goes up. And it was really, really cool. But, you know, it was cool being involved with both groups. You know, I had the opportunity to put up a route on Mount Wilson, the Blue Diamond Ridge with Paul Van Betten. And it was like, you know, this was a guy that used to guide El Capitan, take the Navy SEALs up it with Jay Smith. I mean, this guy has done so much stuff. And I couldn't believe that, like, I met him at the boulders, and I was like, you know, in awe of this guy. And I said, I have this route that I want to do. It's not done yet. And he's like, when I told him about it, he's like, he lived in Blue Diamond, you know, he's like, "Oh, I know that route." And I said, you know, he's like, "But I don't think it's very good rock up there." And I said, but you can see this from town. You know, you can see this line. And I'm really into routes that, you know, are that you can see from a long ways away. It's my favorite type of climb, whether it's Chaucy or good rock. And the Blue Diamond Ridge, from the loading dock, from most of the loading docks in Las Vegas on the Strip, when you look west, you can see that line in the morning on Wilson. It's beautiful. So I got to go do that thing with him, and we didn't place any bolts, and just had an amazing time. And just, you know, he's like, he was stoked because, you know, he's like, the first grade 5 put up on Wilson was the Woodrow by John Long and Richard Harrison. And he considered that route a grade 5. I don't know if it's still considered that today, but it's like, it's a second grade 5. And I was just like, whoa, I can't believe we did this. You know, it's amazing. You know, I wasn't even 30 years old yet. And so, yeah, you know, I had the opportunity. It was a small scene. I got connected with the core people pretty quick. And, you know, this place just kept growing and growing, and it got on the radar as this is a wonderful place to live. If you want to be a climber, it's so accessible. We have Mount Charleston for summertime. We've got Red Rock, which is all season. You know, on the other side of town, you've got Granite that you can go climb on. It's close to Zion. It's close to the Sierra. It's close to Joshua Tree. Like, this became known as a place to be.
Yeah. It seems like back in the day, it was very much a free-for-all for first ascents out here, and almost like that's what people were doing. You climbed and you did first ascents out in Red Rock Canyon.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of repeating routes going on?
Oh, for sure.
Okay,
you
so
know,
there had already been like a number of routes that had been established that were classics that people were already repeating at this point.
Well, for sure.
Because now it seemed like, I don't know if I'm ignorant in this way, but like there's definitely some people still putting up FAs in Red Rock Canyon. But to me, I guess I'm like glorifying the old days in a way where it's like this untouched landscape where there's just like, I mean, all these classics have yet to be done, and people are just putting up these routes. Like, it seems like such a different time than it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, on Mount Wilson, you just take that chunk of rock. I mean, it's a massive expanse of rock. I mean, in the 90s, you know what I mean? George and Joanne, they're still putting up roots right now. They're still putting up roots. And I'm talking about the 90s, man. Yeah. They had done Gift of the Wind Gods.
Yeah, wow. So they had already established a ton of routes by the time you even showed up.
Oh, yeah.
How old were they when you showed up?
Well, George had to have been in his mid 60s. I mean, Joanne is 20 years younger than George, I think, or at least 15. So, I mean, late 40s.
Wow. So there had already been so much time passed by the time you showed up of them like putting up routes and climbing in that canyon.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, her book came out, I think it was like in 86. The next book after that was Todd Swain's book. Todd Swain's guidebook came out. And Joanne's book, this little book that's about like this thick, and Todd Swain's just whoosh, because it included all the sport climbing areas,
Interesting.
And then after that, after Todd, Roxana did her book, and then of course Jerry did his book and blew them all away. And what's the point of doing a guidebook after Jerry Handren did the guidebook? It's like
Okay. So the time frame in my mind was a bit diluted. It's cool reframing there that there was already so much done by the time you showed up, which is crazy because, yeah, I know we're just sitting now where it's like it's just so saturated, but it's been like that for so long.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
And what's great is there's still some plums to be picked out there.
Oh, for sure. There's plenty of people I know that are just crushing first ascents out here still. They definitely, it seems like they keep it to themselves. I mean, good for you, because it's like for now, we've talked to people like this before. It's like if you're developing an area, you get to keep it to yourself as long as you want, and then you move on, and then you release it to the public, and then it's like the cycle of a first developer. I'd do the same thing. It's like, this is my crag for a little bit. You guys,
yeah,
I'm going to bring my friends, and then when I'm done with it, I'll put a guidebook out, or I'll put it on Mountain Project or whatever.
I still have some things that I've looked at on Mountain Project. I'm like, I cannot believe this hasn't been done yet, this line. But I just know that one day I'll look on there, just like, scrolling like, oh, well, yeah, somebody did this. I have some gear still hanging out there on some routes that I had to bail off of because of really probably needed a bolt, and it was just like, oh, just hanging this out way too far here. Yeah, but it was really great. I feel grateful that I came here at that time, and
so I'm interested, and on this note of history of Red Rock Canyon, I think you had mentioned the Rainbow Wall. The Rainbow Wall is such an iconic piece of rock. If you're driving through the loop, it's all I can look at. It's just like positioned up way behind Rainbow Mountain. It's just like this amphitheater, 1,000 feet tall. Just an iconic piece of rock. And the obvious line that goes up it is the original route. And I have my own story with this route, but I've been on it. I've climbed it a couple times. But in our conversation, we talked about kind of the history of the route itself, how it was originally an aid climb, and someone came and basically sport bolted the whole wall,
wrap bolted it,
and then there's been like chopping, and Dan McQuaid came back and actually like re-bolted it and made it to the route that it is today. What do you know about that kind of process, and walk us through kind of the history of that route specifically?
Well, coming here as a young man and first time driving the loop, and I mean, that is when you pull into Pine Creek and you look up at that, it is the grandest cliff. I mean, there's bigger cliffs in Red Rock, but Rainbow Wall, that you just look up at that and you're just like, whoa. And June of 93, my friend Ted Steiner, who he's up in Whitefish, Montana right now. He's 10 years older than me too. He flew down here, and he and I went up there and did the Rainbow Wall over the course of 3 days. And we aid climbed 98% of it. It's like, you're just in aid climbing mode. Like, I didn't even bring rock climbing shoes. I just ATRIAs and, hammers and pitons and, bashing our way up that thing, dude. And it was really challenging. And in fact, the crux pitch, which I think was pitch 3 for aid climbing or whatever, was so challenging. It took me like 7 hours to do. And I rappelled down. I was out of my mind. And Richard Harrison and Michelle Locatelli and Shelby Shelton had just climbed the Rainbow Wall recently. And me and my buddy hiked down from the Rainbow Wall. We hiked across the desert to the visitor center where there was a payphone and phone book hanging on it. And I looked up Richard Harrison's number and I called him. I said, "Hey, Richard Harrison, it's Andrew Fulton. I met you at the Boulders. I'm up at the Rainbow Wall right now. I know you just climbed it. I did pitch 3. It was terrifying. So scary. Does it get harder? He's like, no, get back up there. And I was like, okay. So we went back up there and we climbed it and had a great experience. Well, in August of 93, I went back to do it with my friend Kevin Bernacki. I mentioned his name already. And another fellow, Tony Ventimiglia, and another guy named Ed Prochaska. And we got up there at the base of the wall, and there was fixed ropes hanging down the whole thing and just a line of bolts. We started jugging up, and it was just bolted. Crazy, dude. Crazy. Bolts like 6 feet apart right next to the cracks. Like you didn't need gear. No gear. And that night, two climbers, we saw headlamps coming up. And this is local knowledge. I mean, it was a fellow named Leo Henson, really nice guy, good climber. Leo had just decided that, the whole freeing of big walls was starting to happen. Like, a few years earlier, Todd Skinner and Paul Piana had done the Salathe wall in their way that they did it. And this was kind of a thing that was happening. Things were being freed. Aid climbs were being freed. And so, this being a no man's land and just a free for all and really no local cohesive climbing scene to speak of, just go do whatever you want. And so Leo just thought he was doing the greatest thing ever. Like, I'm doing a service. And, he came up there, and I didn't really have the clout that, Bernacki did. But but I had done the route. So I paid my dues earlier but Leo, he didn't understand at all, like why we were upset at this. Right. And, so anyway, we did the climb that weekend, had a fun time. Aid climbed right next to his bolts, clipped the bolts, clipped the anchors. Like, oh, okay, this is a weird thing, but it's kind of nice having these bolts. And had the nice experience on the Over the Rainbow Ledge. That's a nice place to spend the night. And we got up there hiked back down to town, and Kevin put the word out and called all those dudes. And then other guys found out, then some guys from Boulder City, there was always a Boulder City crew that climbed in Red Rock too. The Keyhole crew that would come out to Red Rock a lot. And Dan Briley, who ended up moving to Blue Diamond. I did a lot of fun climbing with Dan Briley. Another fellow, George Smith. It could have been somebody else too. They went to the top and they chopped it. They wrap chopped it. So now they're
bolt.
What's that?
Every bolt?
Except for what was still original from Joe Herbst, but I am pretty sure Leo might have left those, but placed his new ones, or he might have removed Joe's stuff, because most of Joe's stuff up there were star drives, just easy back then. Right. So anyway, then McQuaid, he took up the torch and decided that he would free this climbing style. So he went back up there and kind of fixed the route up a little bit, how he felt like it needed to be done to do what he needed to do. And he did his variation of Rainbow Country, at the same time. And so, he freed the route, and then he did his link up Rainbow Country. And I was fortunate, we were working. Dan and I both did the same stuff for work. We guided for Randall, and then we got into the union doing the rigging stuff. And he's just one day, he's like, hey man, I'm going to go climb the original route tomorrow. Do you want to do it? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, man, I think you should. You could free some of these pitches up there. And I was like, okay. And so it was really, really great going up there with him and getting his encouragement. And I freed, I think, isn't there like in a down low, like pitch 2 or pitch 3, it's like an 11A crack.
Pitch 3.
Yeah, it's really nice. Great.
Really
I was thinking, he's like, as you evolve as a climber, you're like, God, I wish I just would have done it like this, like a long time ago. It was so nice. And then we topped out and had a really great time. We did the route really quick, and I was just like, wow, like free climbing is awesome. It's awesome. I mean, it's good to be able to aid climb quick. Aid climbing's not that great. It's fun to like do some scary aid moves and pull it off and kind of engineer stuff, but free climbing past all that stuff that I just did some pretty cool moves here. And I would have aid climbed. I put a hook in there, So that was an awesome experience. And it just, Rainbow Wall is an iconic, formation up there. And I think a lot of people have just turned this thing into, turned that route into something that like because you've done it a bunch of times, you told me.
Yeah.
You guys just go up there and march up this thing now.
I wouldn't say
it's
that.
like,
It's still, it whooped
it's
my
like,
ass.
it's a car to car thing, right?
It is a car to car thing.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And
I think we did it in 10 hours car to car or something like that.
yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Just what a day,
What a day.
What a day.
That wall is so cool.
Yeah.
That climb is so good.
Yeah, it's
I don't want to blow it out, but I mean, people already know about it. It's just freaking fantastic.
Yeah,
every pitch.
that upper dihedral.
God, every good.
Killer exposure, man.
Really good.
And
Really hard. Like I've talked about this too much on the show, but like I had a young kid, he was like 18, and I reached out to him on Instagram. I didn't even live here yet, and he had done it. And I was like, that's a dream climb of mine. And he was like, dude, you got it. And I was like, all right, fuck yeah, I believe this kid, And so I just followed him up the whole wall.
Oh, wow.
And so I just like, it was the first time I had ever even been on like 11 plus, 12 minus, or sustained like 11 climbing. And I was able to do it on follow. And I was like, just like mind blown. This is what's possible. This is what climbing is. Wow. And like, so then I like took it upon myself to like go build my skills and then come back at it with an equal partner to go swap leads and like actually go after it. And we were able to piece it together. I haven't red pointed the route yet, but I've been able to free the route up to this point. So yeah, just an incredible route, such a cool history, and what a cool experience to have seen it from aid to sport bolted to what it is now. Yeah. I just thought that it was such a really cool transition that you got to see the route go through.
Yeah, I mean, it was legit history. I mean, I'll just never forget. We were like, oh yeah, it was being seen as a service to the community, turning this thing it was a pure aid climb. Everybody was, and so he was trying to do something that was becoming a style, but because he wasn't a trad climber and mostly just a sport climber, it was hard to put the vision of what the possibility could be together. Yeah. So
No,
I'll
totally
give him
understand.
that.
For sure. Yeah. And I don't think that it's cool to hear that there's no malintent. It's just like, he was kind of a sport climber and he saw a vision.
Yeah.
It's like good for him.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. We had talked about risk a little bit, and I want to kind of like ask some of these questions to preface some of your closer calls in the mountains. So it sounds like, at least from our conversation before, you found pride in risky climbing. Is that true?
Absolutely. And it is still something that I find pride in.
So so the risk, is it the risk or the fear, or are they tied together? Like, do you like putting yourself in a position where you're scared and then overcoming it?
Yes, that's absolutely what it is. It's I love being able to snap into the mindset of digging deep, going outside of myself to do something that I didn't think was going to be that possible for myself.
I think there's two. I totally understand that. I think you can do that without being fearful. You can like channel focus and execute something you thought was impossible, or you can go into a state of panic and still come out the other side with that lesson. Is like your pride, is it related to being like entering that panic state and then coming out of it successfully? Or is it just executing something that you've done?
It's absolutely executing. I really take the, when you choose to go do something, like risk is just dependent on where your skill is at, your strength, your head,
and the objective you choose comparable to those skill sets.
Like I enjoyed the experience of climbing without a rope, and I enjoyed the experience of climbing on a rope because I could take different risk. There's a safer risk. All right. Roots, Nick Nordblom. Maybe you know Nick Nordblom. He put up the Bighorn Buttress. He put up Archaeopteryx. He put up some stuff with Richard on the Rainbow Wall. I think he put up, he actually solo, Desert Solitaire was one of Nick's routes, and he did that solo.
Free solo?
No,
Oh,
no, not free solo.
rope solo.
Rope solo, 8 climb.
Got it.
On the Rainbow Wall. Bighorn Buttress, Raptor, Archaeopteryx, and Archaeopteryx was always a route that I looked at when, it's on that arête of Triassic sands. And you look at that on the Velvet Wall, man, it's really striking. I always was like, man, I'd like to go, do that route. Nick's really tall. And it's really important to understand who the guys were who established routes. Because, if they were drilling, a lot of times they were drilling at their reach.
Way above their head. Yeah. You're going to need to bring a stick clip with you.
Yeah. I think he put up Sandstone Samurai.
Oh, wow.
I think. I'm pretty sure. Maybe him and Richard did that. We'd have to look in the book. But the question is about risk. And there's 2 styles of risk for me. There's the risk where I want to go see what this other person experienced to go do this. All right. So, you call me up, you're like, hey, Andrew, I just put up this awesome route, man. It's a little, go do it. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to go do it, because we want to measure ourselves against each other. And that's what climbers do. That's just something I think that's in every sport. They have it in basketball. I mean, Michael Jordan faced that every single game. Guys were trying to play at that guy's level, but, and in climbing, I think it's really easy to do that as well. I think it's easier to go do first ascents than to follow in somebody else's footsteps, because you're having to match their boldness, and you're in the back of your mind, you're wondering, am I qualified to get to this person's level? But never, ever have I been into the mode where fear is a motivator. Okay. I have had situations happen in my life where there was a fearful circumstance that motivated the energy.
But you don't put yourself in situations where you're going to be out of control in a way.
Never.
You don't seek that out.
Never. The first time, I always knew at some point, I told you that I'd done some free soloing, and free soloing epinephrine was a benchmark for me. And a lot of it had to do with people that I had in my life. That was an important milestone in my world of climbing. I hung out with guys who, that's what they did. That was a route that they would do.
It's like a normalizing factor.
Yeah. And, having guided it many, 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 many times. I mean, by the first time I went and did that route without a rope, I'd probably climbed it over 50 times, probably done the chimneys even more. And in the back of my mind, I just knew, like, someday this will happen. I will do this someday. I don't know when, but someday I will be prompted and I will act on that prompt. And when I did act on that prompt, part of the mindset was wondering what my mental headspace will be up there. Am I going to have these moments of regret where I'm up there, wondering what I'm doing with my life and why I'm here right now and why I put myself in this situation? The answer to that is no. I never had any of those types of experiences. And that's what I call being a samurai. You go into battle, you accept what the circumstances and what the possible outcome can be, but you're just on this one path, and that is your only path you're focusing on.
You don't have room for the fear to creep in those moments. Yeah.
Nothing else. And so I really enjoy that. I enjoy getting into that state of mind. It's kind of a flow state, I find the climbing flow state to be a little different than the flow state of, let's say, on a bicycle, where on a bicycle, you literally can check out and go, oh my gosh, where have I been for 35 minutes? I haven't even been conscious of myself. I've just been in this flow state, The only others I've experienced that in bicycling and paddling, big paddles, where you're just
It's like a disassociation.
disassociation.
But in climbing, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Yeah.
It's like fully present.
Fully present.
The most, climbing has allowed myself to be the most present I've ever been.
For sure.
It is like cellular.
Yeah.
It's like such a hard thing to describe to people because I think the fear and the risk is part of that. It's like your life is on the line and you have to be so internally connected to be able to like stay in balance or perform the way you need to be to stay attached to the wall. And there's just something so beautiful about that experience.
There sure is. And, anthropologically, when you look at it, it was just a few hundred years ago that every day was a survival day for our relatives. And that these instincts and these abilities are slowly leaving humanity as we know it today. And that's why I believe climbing and adventure sports are really, really important because, you think about it. Most of our probably, the most serious thing that I did today was drive in Las Vegas. I had to go downtown. I had to get on the freeway. I had to drive around.
It can be pretty scary.
Yeah, it can be pretty scary. And what makes it risky? All the other associated possibilities of factors that could go into this. Basically being surrounded by people.
Just chaos.
And when we get out there into this environment today, we get to slow it down and we get to choose to put ourselves into that situation. It's pretty beautiful, dude, And so, as a guide, one of the things that I know, I will always call myself a guide. I don't guide so much anymore, but I can go out there and guide today. I can take people up routes very safely, whatever. And I enjoy teaching climbing. But one of the things that I noticed consistently with almost everybody is, and this was just a simple thing, we are losing our ability to walk across terrain. And that's just a simple thing, of just navigating across the desert. Because what I noticed is most of my, the hardest part of guiding was getting people up to Crimson Chrysalis. Not climbing Crimson Chrysalis, not getting down Crimson Chrysalis, but then getting back to the car. That's where my situations would happen. Literally, that descent down off of Crimson, down the hillside where Cloud Tower and all that I'm sure that is just even worse than it was.
It's pretty loose.
Pretty loose. It's easy to have your feet skate out from underneath you. You land on your tailbone and all of a sudden, this person is hobbled, I had a rule guiding no jumping. In fact, it's one of my rules today with myself. No jumping, no leaping. Because one of my classic situations was hiking into Cat in the Hat and having a client, the creek was flowing, it was springtime, and I hop across the boulders and I turn to tell this lady, like, hey, follow me, just as she's kind of executing this nice little leap. And she leaps, I see her foot land on a round bowling ball style rock covered with wet water. And she, and the rest of the day was spent with her foot in the creek in a beautiful place.
It's like slow-mo. You're like, no jumping.
Yeah, no jumping. Yeah. And I remember I was like, her foot swelled up. And I was like, oh, we got to get you out of here. And she's like, nope. I'm staying right here. We'll keep my foot in the creek. I hope you don't mind. I've paid you today. We're just going to hang out right here. And I was like,
okay,
right, cool.
Can't
That's what we did.
that.
And we watched people on Mescalito, and she talked about, I just didn't realize that I shouldn't have done that. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you. And, so
that's interesting
anyway,
though. Yeah.
Risk is important, I believe, for evolution because it propels in advancement within ourselves. It'll propel advancement within technology and stuff like that.
I forget who said this, but I love the idea of manufactured risk. It's like we manufacture the risk ourselves. It's almost like we're because otherwise it's like that chaos that we talked about. When we climb, it's like we're forcing ourselves into a controlled element of risk.
For sure.
And there's something cool about that. And also I think there's like a tandem there with like suffering. I feel like I have this mantra. It's not exactly really like true, but I feel like if you don't manufacture your own suffering, the universe will make you suffer on its own accord, according to chaos.
Oh, I really like that.
And so like
I like that.
Choose to suffer in your own way, and you might mitigate the world's random chaos of suffering upon you.
Oh, that's great, dude. That's very profound. I'm going to use that.
Hell yeah.
If Livezen were known for only one product, it would be their EcoTrek overalls. These are technical bibs built for the outdoors. Flexible enough to climb in, but tough enough to handle the abuse that climbing puts clothes through. They are also made from 70% recycled ocean waste, which I think is pretty cool. Trust me when I tell you, Livezen's EcoTrek overalls are the outdoor apparel you didn't know you needed. I already owned 2 of these before reaching out to Livezen. That's how much I love and trust this brand. Plus, they also make female-specific versions of these EcoTrek overalls with a patented GoFly zipper for easy trailside relief. They also have killer color options: the caramel yellow, olive green, stone charcoal, and the woman's only plum truffle purple. Plus, when you pick up a pair, you're not only upgrading your kit, you're supporting the climbing majority. Hit the link in the show notes and use code TCM15 at checkout for 15% off your next order. That's TCM15 for 15% off at checkout.
All right, story time. So I want to talk about these like accident stories. You know, you tease these out to me, and I think they're just like the stories that you tell your entire life. You know, like your kids are going to hear these, your kids' kids are going to hear these, and I'd like to solidify them on the internet.
Okay.
If that's cool with you.
Sure.
So the first one, I think there's 5. So you can be brief, you know, however you want to tell these. The first one is the rock fall on Dream of Wild Turkeys.
Dream of Wild Turkeys, one of the most classic rock climbs, traveled thousands of times. Why is there loose rock on this thing? All right. So I had the opportunity I was climbing a lot with this fellow named Ed Prochaska, who just was really passionate about climbing. And he only led at a certain grade. And that was basically 5'8". And I did, he wanted to do Dream of Wild Turkeys, and he saw me as a rope gun, you know. So we went out there. It was summertime. Classic Black Velvet Canyon. 1 car in the parking lot. 1 car. There's a lot of climbs in Black Velvet Canyon. You know, what are the chances of this one other team being on the same route? Well,
For Black Velvet Canyon, high. It's high.
You know,
It happens to me.
and so we hiked in, and you know, he was convinced they'd be on something else, you know. We get in there, and lo and behold, there they are. They're starting the first pitch. And I had climbed Frogland before, Wholesome Fullback. What's the killer climb on the other side of Wholesome Fullback that you rappel down? Our Father. I'd done these climbs, right? But I hadn't been on the Velvet Wall yet. And so, you know, we're hiking into the Velvet Wall and get up there, and we see these guys on the first pitch, and the fellow leading is climbing very, very slow. And so Ed's like, we can do the gobbler. And the gobbler, you know, wishbones into Dream Wild Turkeys. Okay. What I knew at this time was climbing underneath people is a taboo. Okay. That Bill and Paul had told me that, you know, that you just, if somebody's on a route that you want to do, you go do something else. You wait till they're at the top. I didn't grow up with, or I wasn't really, I didn't buy a helmet to go rock climbing for probably my first 3 years of climbing, you know, and then I decided like, I should buy a helmet, you know. Probably somebody had told me to, maybe Randall had said, Randall, we didn't even have a rule that we had to guide with helmets. You know, I don't even think the clients wore helmets. You know, it's like, it's a personal choice. You know, like how a stop sign isn't a personal choice.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so anyway, I didn't have a helmet on, and we went in there to do, we're on the gobbler. I climbed the first pitch, and then the second pitch is a chimney, and I'm floundering in this chimney, man. I think the chimney leans like this, and I was scared. And anyway, the other guy took over, and they were climbing faster, and so we weren't going to get in front of them. And so the classic third pitch on Dream of Wild Turkeys is that dihedral, the blaze right at the base. By the time we get there, the other party is up that. The second is finishing that third pitch, about to get onto the big ledge. I ask permission to climb. They say, yes, go ahead and climb. There's enough room up here for all of us. And so I start climbing up this dihedral. And at some point I hear rock, rock. And I look up, man, and there's a rock the size of a baseball coming right down the dihedral at me. And I just squeezed in and held myself in, and that rock, I'll never forget the sound, right past the back of my head. And I literally thought I was a goner.
No helmet.
I had no helmet on, and it went down, and it hit my partner in the head and knocked him out. And he had a helmet on.
He had a helmet on.
He had a helmet on. He had always climbed with a helmet, a red helmet. I totally remember it. And knocked him out. And once again, it made me reflect back to when I went to your talk, and you were talking about, like, belaying with a standard belay device. If your partner were to be knocked out, you are no longer on belay. And I had that happen. And, but instantly I put in a piece of gear, and I was, and, he came to pretty quick. I mean, he wasn't knocked unconscious for like 30 seconds. It was like, boom, out. And then, I'm back type of thing. Yelling, Ed, are you okay? And, the guys up above are freaking out, and he's like, I'm okay. And, if that would have been a piece of granite or limestone, would have been lights out for sure. But sandstone exploded. So anyway, those guys wrapped down to him. I put myself onto their ropes and was able to get my gear out and get down to him. And we all went down together. And I remember that the fellow who dropped the rock, he was really, really upset because he had been the center of a serious rescue shortly before in Ouray, where he had a serious ice climbing accident and had been rescued by the famous climber back then, Mark Wilford, big alpinist dude. And so this guy was really distraught, and it was a really come to Jesus moment type of thing. Like, whoa, man. Like, when I started up that pitch, and I said, Ed, we shouldn't climb underneath him. And he's like, oh, there's no rock up there. This thing's been climbed 1,000 times, and it's, the difference is what it boils down to is there's people who climb here regularly, who I think it's people who live here, who really know how to climb the stone. And then there's people who come here who are good climbers who aren't adjusted to the stone as much. Because there's a certain way you grab certain styles of handholds here. It's just a certain way, man. And there's certain things that should be stood on and certain things that shouldn't be stood on, and certain things that when you stand on them, you better be very conscious of, that foot could break away at any second. It's just like a piece of cauliflower, especially the white sandstone, right? So anyway, that was a really, really serious situation where, as I reflect back on my life of close calls, it's, I probably had some as a young kid that, I don't remember as much as these ones that started when I started climbing. So that was the first one.
Did you wear a helmet afterward?
Yeah. I've had a helmet save my life before, but probably not all the time. I probably was better at making the decision for a little while of not climbing underneath, but I still was climbing
lessons
underneath
are learned,
people.
but not for a long time sometimes.
Yeah, that's kind of the deal there.
My rule for helmets are trad climbing or multi-pitch helmets on.
Yeah.
That's it. Sport climbing, I kind of make my own judgment call. But it's funny, after my accident, when I was talking with Max, if you go back to these old episodes, I'm like, wear a helmet every time. You're an idiot if you don't wear a helmet every time. There's no excuse, and here I am 3 years later. It's like, and I'm justifying it again. It's like, okay, well, sport climbing, I don't wear a helmet anymore. It's like, it's a hard thing to draw. And it is, like we talked about in the beginning, it's a personal decision. You just have to know what you're risking. And we all make risk assessments when we climb every day. And it's like, you chose to climb under a party without a helmet, your odds are going up kind of high. So it's just judgment calls we all make for sure.
Yeah. Well, the thing about head injuries too, I mean, there's so many other injuries that can happen to the body that if your body doesn't recuperate from them, you can still have a pretty good life. But head injuries are a whole different ballgame. So
protect your head.
Protect your head.
What about 94, Lady Wilson's cleavage?
Oh, yeah.
What happened there?
So I'm up on Lady Wilson's cleavage with my buddy Ted Steiner, who I did the Rainbow Wall with. in 93, that original last scent of maybe the root in its original condition. So we went up to Lady Wilson's cleavage. This was spring. It was March. I remember right at the base, there was still a snowbank. And, you know, I had climbed. I had already climbed the Resolution arête. So I was all about ticking some roots on Mount Wilson, right? And Lady Wilson's cleavage, 5'8". And, you know, if I had called George and Joanne and proposed climbing this, they probably would have said, no, don't go do that route. You know, Joanne had a really terrible experience on it too.
During the FA or just general?
During the first ascent, she took a huge fall up there. And so anyway, you know, Lady Wilson's cleavage is basically a drainage. That's what it is. It's just a wide crack that drains this little specific area of Mount Wilson up there. And the first pitch is actually really great. It's a nice off-width full of those cool, small Wacos that are like the size of little holes, patinaed. You know, pretty cool. Fun to climb that stuff. Then after that, it turns into a gravel. And you just better have your off-width on, man. And I didn't know to haul my pack between my legs at this point. It was on my back and my partner and everything like that. And so anyway, we climbed really, really slow. And that second to last pitch up there, you're in this big Bombay chimney. You have to climb up. You have to do a traverse out. And then you get into a gully system that leads up to a ledge that has a big ponderosa pine tree on it. You can see that from down on the road. And when it was dark by now, and it wasn't daylight savings time yet, I believe, or the days weren't long yet. And Ted led that pitch, and when he got into that gully up there, he's like, "Hey, Andrew, there's a ton of loose rock in this thing, full of pine needles, and it's loose." He goes, "I'm going to climb over the stuff, but we got to stay heads up in there." And what didn't happen was some type of a directional place to keep the rope out of dragging through the gully. So when it became my turn to climb the pitch, and I climbed up the Bombay, and then I did the traverse out, and I was turning this kind of bulge into this gully. As I was turning the bulge, I heard the sound of like when a dump truck first starts to dump its load when the load shifts. So that was like loud sound, you know. And I realized I'm in the throat. I'm in this thing. Like, whoa, okay. And then so I start getting up into the gully, and then all of a sudden the thing cuts loose, man. And I could just I could hear the whole thing just moved, and maybe Ted yelled, screamed rock or something, but I just immediately dove out into space, and all that debris came down on my back and my legs and crushed me, you know, against the wall. And it was absolutely unbelievable that the rope didn't get cut. Like I think about that sometimes. I'm like, wow, man, that was amazing. And I think it's because I dove out like that. So I pulled the rope out of the gully a little bit as that stuff came down on me. And I mean, because if the rope would have got cut, it would have been, you know, 800 feet down. And so I couldn't, I was really messed up from that. Just smashed, and couldn't, my lower lumbar, my back, my legs, I could hardly stand. And so talk about a great anchor. Got this giant ponderosa up there. And Ted, he had rescue skills. He knew how to set up a compound system, and he just basically pulled me up that. And we got to that, and I was so nervous about that gully going again, really nervous. But it didn't. And then we stayed on that ledge for maybe an hour and a half. And then he climbed the last pitch to the rim of Wilson. And then he hauled me up that, and we hung out up there for a couple hours. And then I still couldn't hardly walk. You're at that south end of Wilson above that big drainage that goes down into First Creek. I basically just butt scooched all the way down into First Creek, got down into First Creek probably at like 2 a.m, something like that. And then was able to hobble, and he was able to hold me up and stuff. So that was a real serious close call. And Joanne's son, Danny Urioste, had the same thing happen to him there. He was hit by rock fall.
Same
there.
goalie.
Same goalie. This thing is just full of debris. And I think that, this pine, that ponderosa up there, just shedding those needles in there, it sets it up for just,
Lack of friction.
yeah, things just to go. So
Wow.
got lucky on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That descent is also not to be underestimated, even with a fresh pair of legs.
No,
It's a long.
Wilson descent.
They need to make some like super sick wrap bolted line. I guess you could do horseshoe wall if you wanted to, but
Yeah, guys used to dudes who were into doing dogma. Yeah, my buddy Flying Brian, he put up dogma, and that was the way you did it. And I'm like, just go wrap dogma. And I was like, well, if I knew where dogma was, I never went to go climb. It's supposed to be incredible.
I know it's on the list.
It's supposed to be
just
just
good.
great. 11C and sustain.
Mostly bolted.
Yeah, Flying Brian route's a serious route, man. It's like doing a Joe Herbst route. You don't know what you're gonna face here. Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Maybe either the fall or the spring season for sure.
Yeah.
All right. 2 out of 3. I love it. This one, the first ascent of the south face of Bridge Mountain, with the fire.
Oh yeah.
Psychedelics.
Oh yeah.
Let's hear that story.
South face Bridge Mountain, Pisces Wall. We named it the Pisces Wall because of that big red fish up there, and that's the longest water streak in Red Rock. That water streak is legit 1,000 feet. And my buddy Dan Briley, he had wanted to climb that. And Richard Harrison, I asked him, I said, why didn't you ever climb that? Because it literally was like probably the last great chunk of rock that hadn't been climbed. And, he did his route on the Lost, they did the Buffalo Wall, did his routes up there. And then he did that route in the very back of Paiute Wall. Yeah. So, he did some stuff. And I think that, way back there stuff. And I think he just was like, Andrew, I've lost interest on these long approaches and stuff like that. And he's like, but that is cool line. And like I said, Dan Briley really was stoked on this thing. So I was like, okay, man, let's go do this thing. And it was going to be a siege. It was like a siege. All right. So really great. One of the things I'd always wanted to do was, check the historical box that our climbing forefathers experienced on El Capitan in the 1970s, which was like, I really want to experience what it would be like to probably go to another world up there on this wall. And so I had decided that, it'd be fun to eat some mushrooms up there at our bivouac and just really have a great experience. Well, one of the things I always also loved to do in Red Rock, and this was another Richard thing, was have fires. I love to have fires.
Yeah.
And
on the wall.
On the wall.
Yeah.
And he always told me, he's like, Andrew, there's wood everywhere, man. You can always have a little fire in Red Rock. It's really, really great. And so I was like, okay. So Rainbow Wall, I had a huge fire and one time. That's a whole other story. I could share that sometime. But we had this huge fire up there, and the bivy ledge on the Pisces Wall, kind of like this 2-3-tiered stair step thing, about 500-600 feet up there. And then there's kind of an alcove where we put this big fire and built this big fire ring and had this massive bonfire. And we lived in Blue Diamond at the time. And Dan Briley's wife was and my wife, they were both expecting our my second kid, his first kid, and he had the old school brick giant cell phone, and his wife made him have that, to call, and you could get reception because the cell tower was at Bonnie Springs. All right, so we had this huge fire, and we're on the phone, and everybody was in our front yard in Blue Diamond. They could see the south face; it was lit up,
Yeah.
dude, and so they didn't know we were tripping, and so then we hang up and everything. We're having a great time. It was really a great experience until it wasn't. And the wasn't part, all of a sudden there was like the sound of a rifle shot. And at that instant, it was burning embers and coals and flames raining down on us. And what had happened was my rock fire ring, sandstone, this was like early spring. We'd had a wet winter. Stuff was full of moisture, and these rocks started exploding.
Jesus.
And this stuff all comes raining down, dude. Ember, most of this stuff that you're burning on these ledges is old oak. It's all these scrub oak stuff. And so it's kind of a hardwood. It's old, burns hot and long, big coals this big on our ropes, melting our ropes, on our sleeping bags, on everything. It was so terrible. We're dumping water out. And, oh man, at one point, stuff went over the ledge. And down there at the base of the Pisces Wall are some huge ponderosa pine trees. And Dan's like, we got to go down. It's probably on fire down there. And I was like, literally, it wasn't like a physical restraint, but I was like, I had to restrain it. I was like, dude, we can't.
We're not doing that.
We light Pine Creek on fire. Well, that's our destiny, and we stayed up there all night, passed out. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm just kind of like laying there. He's just looking at me, and I'm laying there like a puddle of mud. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, dude. He goes, I just wanted to go climbing, Andrew. I know, dude, it's my fault. The mushrooms, the fire, everything. Have to take it all the way to the next level. And so anyway, we had to come home. We had to tie ropes together. When I'm saying ropes were completely melted, we had to tie ropes together to get down. And we showed up, 3 days before we were supposed to. Our wives were like, what are you doing here? We're like, told them some BS story. And so then a couple weeks later, we go back up there to do it again, and no mushrooms this time. And that's when we had a great experience with bees. A huge swarm of bees came up the wall. I got covered with gazillion bees. But he's like, they're moving the queen, so they're not going to sting. And
I could just imagine he's like screaming down at you, they're moving the queen.
Yeah.
Just stay chill.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's okay. But it was amazing how the canyon filled with this hum and, that south face just heating up. And knowing as a paraglider now, now I completely understand what was happening. Those bees were riding the thermal right up that canyon, that heat right up that wall. And, 10 minutes later, they were gone. And but the sound in that canyon coming towards us was like, whoa, what is going on? So that was really cool. And then we topped out on the water streak. And Dan was done. He's like, I've done it. I've climbed the water streak. This is great. It's awesome. And that last pitch was like lots of bat hooks and then a bolt. Lots of bat hooks and then a bolt. And that's kind of how that pitch was. And
are you bat hooking natural features, or you're drilling?
Drilling. And the drill we had was a Bosch Bulldog modified with a motorcycle battery. So we'd wear a backpack, and there was a motorcycle battery in the backpack, and then an extension cord coming out of that. And then we had unlimited drilling.
Wow.
We never.
Is that a common thing? Have you heard of other people do that?
I only knew Dan did it, dude. This guy. He is a class.
It's like some Megatron shit.
Desert Dan Briley is his thing on Mountain Project.
Okay.
He's a cool dude. I think he lives in Hawaii.
That's legendary.
It is legend. Dan was a legend, dude. So anyway, climbing that water streak was not good enough for me. We got to go to the summit, and we need to put up these pitches on the south face of the dome of the summit. And so when you look at the south face of the dome, there's these two diagonally left-leaning cracks. We climbed the left one of the two, and that's two pitches. And we got up there, and I did the first pitch. It was some free climbing, some bolts, a little bit of aid climbing, and obviously the top of Bridge Mountain is all that white friable rock, downward angling like shingles, right? So it's just like, it's not the funnest to climb. So anyway, then I got that first pitch, got anchors in, we left some ropes, rappelled back down, spent the night at our camp, Jumar'd back up the next day, went back up there, got up the first pitch. Now we're going to the second pitch. And the second pitch of the dome that leads us to the summit of Bridge Mountain was right out. It was the belay was kind of underneath an overhang here. And you had to climb out underneath this overhang, like this roof, and go up into this groove that led up to the top. And so Dan Briley was kind of in this protected zone where he couldn't see what was going to be going on up here. And right off of the belay, like 10 feet off of the belay, I found this really cool placement. As climbers, we love cool placements. Just imagine an egg extracted from the rock. So that was the shape in the rock. and it took a number 2 Camelot, gold Camelot, perfect, horizontal. I mean, just so perfect. I said, Dan, you're going to love this placement, dude. It's cool. He's like, all right, put a long sling on it. And what's amazing is I actually was like, should I place it? Nah, I don't know. And then I finally was like, the uniqueness of this, I'm doing it. All right. If I hadn't done that, if I hadn't done that. So now I'm going up this groove, and basically what I'm doing is I'm drilling these bat hook holes, top stepping on my atriers, just leapfrogging all the way up. And I decided I was going to put up the scariest hooking pitch ever in Red Rock. That's what I was going to do. And he's like, dude, just place a bolt now. Come on. I'm like, nope. Because I was like, no one's ever going to come and do this again. So why not just make it like, yeah, no one's going to do this, right? So, very last one. And when I say I was top stepping on the top atria, then drilling my next hole, putting my next bat hook in it. So, leapfrogging that, I got up to the very last one, and there was a ledge that I was going to step onto and put the belay. I drilled my last hole, and I tapped my bat hook into it, and I stepped on it, bounce tested it, felt really great, climbed up on it, took the atria out from underneath of me, climbed up onto this thing, top stepping, and as I was taking, double set of aiders, and took 1 foot out of one of those aiders, and I was stemming over onto this ledge, bam, that hook popped off just like that. I had a helmet on, and I just started falling, and I accepted my fate. I said, you're going to die, Andrew, just like that. And you've heard of fainting goats?
Yeah.
You ever seen fainting goats? So in that type of a situation, I fainted, where I was like, I'm dying. There's nothing I can do to correct this. In the world of paragliding, you're falling, you have a parachute, you fight till the very, very end, trying to make this all happen. But in climbing, there ain't much you're going to do. All right. It is what it is. And so all I remember was bam, bam, bam. And that was my head hitting.
Jeez.
Because I'd started sliding down this slab and got flipped upside down. Well, because Dan Briley was underneath this overhang and all this rope was just kind of piling up, coming down this, I flew past his head and he never even knew it, dude.
Wow.
And when I landed, I landed on that number 2 Camelot in that white sandstone. That kept me from hitting the ground, the base of the dome. And when I came to, I was spinning in space. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm alive. And then, I'm like checking. I'm like, wow. And I just hear him yelling and yelling my name. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay. Oh, I'm below him, 100 feet. And I'm like, what happened? Everything seems so solid. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. So I reled the pitch. I got up there. And what I had done was I had drilled a hole. If you imagine an oatmeal cookie about that big, it was a flake pasted to the wall. And I could have taken my hammer and it just would have popped it off. But I was just in this frame of mind. And that's what I drilled my hole in. And it was acceptable for straight up and down. But as soon as I stepped to the right, I sheared it off. And you could barely even see the divot of the drill bit. It barely even broke through that thing. So I re-drilled the hole and did the move and built the anchor there. And obviously, just going, wow.
What's the route called?
It's just the south face of the Pisces.
South face of the Pisces Wall.
South face Bridge Mountain.
Has it seen a repeat?
I have no idea. No one.
I'm sure if they did, they would have reached out to you and just been
They
like,
would have
"You're
reached
insane."
out. A few years later, I went, and this was in the early 2000s. I hiked to the summit and rappelled the route. And all my original webbing was a pink webbing. It was still there, bleached white. I'm sure somebody would have replaced it by now. But, it was one of these climbs. I think I explained. It was like, it's not, I'm proud that we did that and it's cool and everything. But as far as like, great climbing style, it was terrible climbing style. I basically murdered the impossible, which is the Reinhold Messner manifesto of like when Caesar Maestri, Caesar Sarah Torre. I did my
You
own.
manufactured a route, yeah.
It's like, and maybe, I don't know. I was never in the frame of mind of exploring extreme possibilities for free climbing. That wasn't in my realm. I was a boulderer. I'd look at something like a boulder type thing, but I'm amazed at climbers who free things that seemed to be impossible back in the day. So I always wondered about that.
Let's be real for a second. The current blueprint for a successful climbing podcast is simple. Interview the best climbers in the world. Big names mean big followings, lots of SEO power, and a built-in audience that helps boost every episode. But this show has never been about that. From the beginning, I have made it my mission to bring you stories from the climbing majority. The climbers who don't live in the limelight. The ones who avoid interviews, quietly put up routes, and give back in ways that are rarely recognized. And while that's what makes this show special, it also means we have an uphill battle when it comes to growth. And that is where you come in. If you're psyched about the show, if you've been inspired, entertained, or fired up about an episode, word of mouth is the single most important way you can help the show. Share an episode with a friend. Play one on a group road trip. Post about the show on social media. Jump onto Reddit threads and Mountain Project forums and share with people what you've been listening to. Be sure to tag the show, tag your favorite guests, and spread the word. And if you want to help even more, I'm currently sending posters to climbing gyms around the country. If you'd like to sport one in your climbing gym, be sure to reach out. Email me at theclimbingmajoritypodcast@gmail.com, and I will be sure to send you one. Let's band together and show the climbing community that the climbing majority has a voice.
So all these risky kind of close calls that you had, we talked a little bit about like the lessons we learned and how they fade a little bit with time. What about like actually decompressing mentally after something so intense and like, I would say traumatic, but it's almost like you escaped the trauma because nothing actually bad happened. So like, is there like a process of decompression that you go through after something like that? Or does it affect you for a certain amount of time? How are you moving past situations like that? Well, because for some people, I think even the first one, some people could retire from climbing immediately. And you've had four, you just told me 4 close calls of life kind of threatening moments in the mountains. Like, what's that process of getting back to the sport and why do you come back?
I've never struggled with getting back on the horse. It doesn't seem, after all those situations that I described to you, or that I just told, these stories that I told, I don't ever remember reflecting back on my fragility of even when I started having kids, man, and obviously this kind of stuff was tough on my wife, that I was out there, I didn't hide these stories for them. Maybe I think she knows everything. There's nothing she doesn't know. But no, I never really had, a situation where I was like, man, I don't think I'll ever do that again. My situation in the maze where that flash flood came through, I think I told you that story. I have not done a canyon since then. I have had no desire to get myself down into a deep abyss that's full of water.
Fair enough.
I think what it has to do with the circumstances of what I call a quick death. The quick death is the way to go. That's the lucky, like boom, lights out, but something that's a prolonged something or other, like
just a death that involves lots of suffering over a certain amount of time. Yeah. Don't want to sign up for that. Well, the thing is though, it's like you could die a horrible suffering death climbing. Like let's say you fall and you survive the initial impact, but you're alone and you were soloing. It's like there are, obviously you can concoct an endless amount of possibilities of ways to die in the mountains. But I agree with you. I think, a quick death is obviously the easiest way to go. Yeah. But I don't know if that's really guaranteed in climbing.
No, it's not. There's just so many amazing stories of guys that have had they've survived incredible. Joe Simpson's Touching the Void. What happened to him? Chris Bonington and Doug Scott when they were on the Ogre over there in Pakistan. Oh my God. Insane stories of these guys crawling for days with broken legs. And you're just like, I often wonder, would I
survive?
Would I survive
I don't
this?
think I would. I talked about it. I'm like, I would die,
Yes.
I would probably just like say my prayers in the crevasse and just kind of go to sleep. It'd be too easy.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many of these types of classic stories, and you're like, I hope I'd be that kind of person. But yeah, I mean, you know, you got to get up every day and you got to get back on the horse and just continue. And I've never really questioned any other way to live.
I feel like there's something specific about the sport though that has that kind of characteristic, because while I said, as a climber, you could just walk away, I've not met anybody that has. It's very rare. Most of the people I talk to have had a life altering experience or a close call. Like you just said, like there was never a doubt in my mind that I wanted to go back to climbing. And it was the same for me. Why is that? What about the sport is so intoxicating and so fulfilling that almost dying doesn't even cause a blip of thought of quitting it? Because I post all these videos on Instagram of me climbing of very vanilla shit, and people are like, you're an idiot. How can you do that? Risk your life. Like people who don't understand. They're like, you're going to die. Like posting Grim Reaper GIFs, or GIFs. And like, so there's some people that literally do not understand why we do what we do. Whereas on our side, we can almost die and we don't even bat an eye.
Yeah. Well, I think it just goes back ancestral, anthropological. We just have this, call it a glitch in us that hasn't quite been erased out of us yet. That we're like, we're the people that would be like questing across the mountain. I mean, maybe the tribe would stay, but we would be sent out by the tribe to go find the next place to
We're the
live.
scouts.
Go find the next. Yeah, we're the scouts. And it's just part of our survival. And I think that, people who probably do get away from the sport and gravitate, or these types of activities, and gravitate into other things that are a little less risky, they probably struggle with that, wondering if, gosh, should I stuck with it? But I don't know. Everybody is their own person. And, my wife, she loves to go out and climb and do the things that we're talking about. But she's never had any of these experiences happen, because when I take her out, it's all about like super mitigating the risk. Like, oh man, no, you're my woman, you're the mother of our kids. You know what I mean? We got to tone it down, babe. So I just think that, there's people who find this activity and they go, this is what I've been searching for. This is it. This is what I was looking for.
Yeah. A calling. A lot of people related to that are like, I can't believe I haven't found this until I have. I regret not finding it early. And there's something about this that just absolutely speaks to me. That is cool. I like the analogy of kind of an ancestral connection. Like we were the people that were out adventuring and searching for new frontiers and taking on the risk. And yeah, we haven't really let go of that biologically. So I think that's a great analogy.
No. But yeah.
Silas Rossi said, I love that. I bring this up a lot, but he said it's really great. It's really fun to do dangerous things well.
Yeah,
I really love
agree.
that motto.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny, like after we don't do dangerous things well, injure ourselves, we learn a lesson to do dangerous things better.
For sure.
And hopefully we can continue to be better and to exist in this dangerous space. And because no one wants to go get injured. No one wants to suffer. We want to play and have fun and come back. But sometimes there's lessons to be paid, and hopefully we survive them. Some people don't get to learn the lessons.
Yeah, some people, unfortunately, they don't. A theme for me has been the theme to do great things, to do great things, and to do inspiring things, and things that inspire me, and things that I feel that like would inspire other people. And as a guide, you're working with people who don't have. They may have the physical skill to go and do Crimson Chrysalis, for instance, but because they're not getting to do it often enough, they don't get the opportunity to develop the headspace to do it. And that's what a lot of it has to do with, and there's people, and I've always kind of been jealous of people that are just okay with a great experience. Just, that was great. And you're like, wow, you wouldn't want this to be more? Oh, no, that was fine. And you're like, wow, how could that be fine? You know, um, but when you have a bookshelf full of guidebooks, which is nothing more than goals, and you're like, well, you know what I mean? It's just like you can't stop it.
Yeah.
You can't stop
It's
it.
it's an interesting thing though, because you can seek different things in climbing, and I think you can seek adventure. Two main veins you can strive for are adventure or performance. And I think, to me, this is biased because I always obviously lean in one direction, but to me, I think that you can gain much more as a human by striving for adventure than you can for performance. I also think that performance has diminishing returns because you can't perform your entire life, but you can search for adventure your entire life. And I feel like there's a lot of people who chase performance their entire life in climbing and either end up getting bitter at the sport because they can't perform like they used to, or they're injured and they can't perform like they used to. And now what does climbing mean to them? It's a big issue in their mind. Is like, what does it mean to me? It's like, well, maybe there's more that you have yet to find.
Yeah, that's true. And I really think that, boy, if those people haven't had if they didn't develop the spiritual connection, because I think that would be the third part of that. You have the adventure, you have the physical, and then you have the spiritual side. And there's a lot of really great climbers writers that have written about kind of the metaphysical side of these experiences outside in the mountains that we get to have. Doug Robinson, for example, Pat Ament back in the day. These guys, a lot of their stuff was a little hard to read because when I was younger, because I hadn't kind of got into that like existential side of like the experience out there. And for me, there's just nothing better than like that is the word. I shouldn't choose a word I can't say very well. Satiated feeling of coming off of something that you were just had to put a lot of effort into, and you're kind of in that bliss zone, and I think that's kind of like that wraps it all up for me. That's
the climbing triangle.
Yeah.
Spirituality, performance, and adventure.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And, I think that's why I always try to impress upon people, as a guide, I worked with people who came from places that were sport climbing areas, right? Like they'd done a lot of sport climbing, or they hadn't done a lot of trad climbing, hadn't been in the mountains a lot, wanted to learn trad climbing. And one of the things that I noticed a lot at sport climbing crags was the energy wasn't always the best for me, because a lot of times there's an intense energy at a crag because people are there to crush their goal, and so there's a lot of yelling and sometimes you can find a nice little quiet sport climbing crag and people are just having a good time, but and angry sport climbing, dude's just intense. Yeah. And you're like, fuck, yeah, wow, man, you're kind of like, and I get it. And bouldering is kind of the same thing. And bouldering can get very, very intense. But yeah, man, I just think that that metaphysical side of the whole experience out there is probably what it sums up for me. I'll never be able to. And I shouldn't go do the stuff that I was used to doing. And I shouldn't go, gosh, I should try to get in shape to be awesome again. It's like, that day's past, man.
Yeah, but there's so much more to climbing that you can extract from it still.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to do. I was looking at your guidebooks right here and I was just like, oh my gosh, I got a lot to do there.
That's one thing that always makes me sad and happy at the same time, is that it's impossible to do everything that I've always wanted to do. What does it say? You can, I'm going to slaughter this. I can't. It's like you can be anything you want, but you can't be everything you want. That's what it is. And that's like cool and sad at the same time, because it's also like you can't, like, I have all these stars on Google Maps around the world. Even if I had no job and all the free time in the world, I could never visit every single place. It's impossible. And it's cool because it's inspiring, because it's so the world is so vast and so diverse and so detailed. But at the same time, time is finite. So
Yeah, time is finite. How we use it is really, really important. You know, yeah. Adventure's a blessing, and I've always been very grateful that even though it's been hard on my family, and I'm the person who never wanted to grow up, right? And I decided that at some young age, like the kid who always going to build a fort, after school. This is what he's doing. And I was very fortunate that I have a very understanding wife. She says, well, this is why I fell in love with you. And I said, but I was only 20 at the time. And now I'm in my 50s. You're still in love with me for this reason? Oh, yeah. So, I feel that I always tell everybody, in my job working in the entertainment industry, I had a lot of time because I never worked a full-time job. It was gig to gig to gig my whole life. And so I've worked with people that are doing the same thing, but don't adventure on their time off. They're just living what I call a normal life, normal people. They got a boat, they go to the lake and stuff with their family, stuff with their kids. And I would go to work and people were just waiting for stories. They hadn't seen me for a month. They're like, Fulton, what's been going on? What are you doing? Before the age of internet and social media, when people are like, where have you been? And so I've always thought that it's been a great opportunity to kind of share my passion. I've taken a lot of stagehands, rock climbing, taught them rock climbing. I've taken several stagehands to the summit of Mount Charleston that have never lived, they've lived in Vegas their whole life underneath that mountain up there. And in our industry, we work a lot of 24-hour days. And I tell guys, man, if you can go to work at 6 a.m. and get off at 6 a.m. the next day, we can go do Mount Charleston. If you can be a rigger and rappel out of a ceiling and stuff, let's go rock climbing. I'll teach you how to rock climb. And so that's where I really feel is like my gift has been, is to kind of like, corral people towards there's another way to live your life, and it can be a lot of fun, and you don't have to go all in like some of us do, but you can experience, you can dabble.
Taste a little adventure.
Yeah, you can taste a little adventure. I have a great friend here in town. I took him, he was a Marine, and which I always wish I'd gone into the military. I regret that I don't have that background, because I would have been a good Marine, I think. But on these jobs, when we're rigging and working hard, he always loved to talk about the Marine days and rappelling in the Marines and stuff. So I said one day, Leo, let's take you climbing, man. Let's get you into climbing. And so he's like, okay, I'm into it. And he's a fellow, he's older than me. He's Cuban too. And his wife is from Argentina. And in Argentina, she knows what alpinism is. All right. She knows what Patagonia is. All right. She's an ex-dancer and he's a stagehand guy his whole life. And so anyway, over the summer, this was like 2002 or 2003. We were loading in a show at the Paris called We Will Rock You. It was a show on the Queen theme. And so I got him to the level where I was able to take him up Dark Shadows. And we did Dark Shadows to the summit. All right. And we topped out at about 11:30 p.m. All right. And he goes, we're spending the night up here. I go, what? He goes, we can't come down. We can't get down in the dark. Because when it started getting dark, he's like, are we going to spend the night here? And I was like, no, Leo, we're going to the top and then we're going to go down this route Cat in the Hat. And so when we got to the top, he's like, calls his wife and they're speaking in Spanish. And I could hear my name getting thrown around a few times and this is all going on and on. And so finally, he was really exhausted. I said, you can take a little nap up here. And he was like in awe, Pine Creek Canyon, all by ourselves, dude, nighttime. I went and scouted how to, have you been to the summit of Mescalito before? Okay, so you go off the summit, get over to that rappel at Cat in the Hat. And
we went down the like goalie system.
Yeah, to the
northwest.
To the north. If I would have known that descent back then, I would have done that. But we're going Cat in the Hat, rappelling Cat in the Hat. Anyway, the whole experience, we get back to the car at 3 a.m. I get him home. A few days later, I go pick him up for work, and his wife came outside, and she's like, thank you for doing that. It's changed him. She goes, you're working with him and doing all this. And her from Argentina and the Andes and the mountains and Patagonia. And her and I'd had some fun conversations about mountains and stuff before, but these people were not climbers type of people. But it really, I saw him 2 months ago at the convention center, and we still talk about this stuff, and he always says, thank you for doing that, Andrew. Thank you. And I said, I knew you'd love it, Marine. I always call him a Marine. I knew you'd love it, Marine. And so, back then, he was a kid. What did the Marines do? They break you down and build you back up. That's the whole motto, right? And so I've just always seen that as a great opportunity to do for other people that are in my environment. Let's get them out there having a great time. Yeah. Giving them a little risk, putting them on the edge. Typically they don't go back, but sometimes they will.
Andrew, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Kyle.
Where can people find you? Where can people learn more about your stories, kind of follow your story?
Well, I have an interesting Instagram. It's called Rig Rock Ride Fly. It's kind of my personal Instagram, my stuff that I all do. And then, so you can go there. And then I'm on Facebook, Andrew Fulton. And then I have this other little thing called High Over Vegas that I'm working on. It's kind of my history show. So fun stuff. That's what I'm doing. That's how you can find me. Yeah, man.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, dude, what a great experience. Thanks for getting all this out of me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great.